muted.
It says you
So
are
was this
muted.
me?
I-
And then me?
You.
Bring the City Council of City of Yamhill to order for a work session and a special session meeting. We are here in person and virtually. This will not be a public session for public comment, but this will be a work session initially, and then we'll go into special session for the public input. May I get a roll call, please?
Corrigan here.
Ski here.
HR here.
Potter here?
Dean here.
All are here. Unfinished business, we'll just dive right in, I guess. Water rate increase review session. So as everybody know, we came to multiple meetings and discussed water rates at multiple opportunities, had a public hearing, had several public comment sessions, and at the last council meeting, a decision was made. It was not popular decision by any of us and definitely not popular within the community. So we're back at the table to glean more information and see if we need to reevaluate, readjust. Is that correct, Councilor Corrigan?
That is correct.
Okay, then we'll go ahead. How would you like to proceed then? Would you like to present anything before we move forward to support your proposal, or would you like to hear from the Oregon Association of Water Utilities? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I would love to hear from Tim.
All right,
So I have my talking points here, single page. And on the drive over, I was thinking that maybe I can answer these by doing a presentation, but maybe if you wish to have some questions thrown at me and trying to get some clarification, that I won't get my train of thoughts, but get your train of thoughts. So why don't we just open it up if you have questions, concerns, where we came up with this to support that and what have you, and how we kind of came to a decision with the recommendations we made. Is that fair?
that works.
Okay,
Yes.
so, anybody, one person, nobody, I don't care. What did you like, dislike? Do you need help clarifying something?
One of the things that was brought to the table after we met with you was that there was a funding loss because of a double payment to on a grant payment. And to make up that funding loss that would normally go to CIP projects, that was included in the calculations. Is that accurate? And so that increased the amount that we needed to come up with on a short period of time to accommodate for that year's loss of funds. And so that was included in our calculations,
So
which
what
you
was
would
the
not have.
funding loss come from?
So there was a loan repayment that carries on for another 16 years that was coming out. And this is, I'm doing my best to regurgitate information from another person.
Jason's familiar, I think.
You got this, Jason?
The SDC.
It was the SDCs.
Charges. And correct me if I'm wrong, it was 300,000 total, right, Caleb? 150 and 150.
No, it was 283 and 80.
Correct.
And we didn't go a full 360 from the CIP. We were using the original 80,000 contingency reserves to be added to the 283 to come up with 363 to be able to fund the CIP projects.
So your proposal covered that. That was all included, if I understand it correctly.
Included that.
What we do not include, we don't do anything with SDCs because SDCs are sporadic in their gains. If you're either growing your system and putting in new systems, then you generate those funds. System development charges are applied from two specific areas. One, you're taking care of the existing customers on the system. And so as part of that money for SDCs, if the developer comes in and pays X amount of dollars per connection, Some of that goes into those new connections. Another percentage of that, and that's up to councils or usually engineers recommend that, is paying for an upgrade of size of pipes. Quick example, got a new subdivision going out, you've got a 6-inch line, you have way too many homes to hook up to it, you've got to move to an 8-inch line. Part of the SDCs pays for that size upsizing, so the residents don't pay for that. Okay, the balance of that would then pay for the extensions and all that kind of stuff. And SDCs was not included, we never include SDCs in any of our rate studies. So does that,
So part of that, on the SDCs in the budget, there was a loan payment coming out of the SDC fund that was only supposed to be for 3 years. And we still have 16 years remaining on that loan. So it's where's that money to pay that's been coming out of the SDCs, where are we gonna come up with that money?
it
Out of
should,
the water.
SDC should support that.
'Cause there's only enough for 3 more years of that payment to come out of the SDC fund.
So you have,
Is that the 158?
Yeah.
so you have 158,000 coming out of the water department budget, but it was supposed to be signaled from the SDC line item.
It came backwards.
It's coming out of SDC
Came out of
and it
SDC.
should come out of water, just the general.
Okay, that was not part of,
But it's part of
Right,
the debt.
and that's, it's a, to the water debt services, so now it's where are we gonna come up with that?
where are you
money?
gonna come up with that additional?
That's the additional funds that we found later, we realized it was coming out of SDCs.
Do
Okay,
you take into account the debt service? on
we counted the debt service at 216,
it? Which is
part of the SDC funds.
158, this last budget went to cover.
So how did we come up with 216,000?
That's the water debt,
Okay, so what does that pay for?
the loans.
Okay, I gotta need more specificity there. So you have loans of 216,000 and some change, okay? Is that part of that 216,000 going to the SDC payment? What's the SDC's paying for, I guess?
The SDCs paid for, weren't meant to pay for, I should say,
The transmission.
the transmission line, which it did pay for this last fiscal year, or this present fiscal year. Of 158,000.
And was that 158 part of the 216?
Yes.
Then we're covered that. Then the SDC funds that are no longer gonna be paying for that debt service will be paid through these rates that we created.
Okay, that was the question that came up.
Will you say
Really?
that,
That's awesome. I mean, that's great.
say that again for me?
So you were paying funds from the SDCs, you no longer have those funds available to pay for that transmission service line, and that transmission service line was included in the 216,000 that we applied to this rate study.
So it was included.
So it was included
So in a
then.
roundabout way, I think we figured that out.
You did. So how does that relate back to the 28380?
The 283 is capital outlay, has nothing to do with debt, that's gonna be an addition. So think of it this way, your debt service is a mandated payment. What we're asking the council to do, and you're in Madam Mayor, is to increase your cost of operations by 283,000. It should be 360, but we took the original 80,000 that you're using for contingencies, those are your emergency funds. And we're combining those two together to cover the capital improvement plans that we chose for the next 4 years. And one of those plans is done because that was the filtered media exchanged out. Okay,
That's
so,
excellent.
and that rate study covered the 283. The 283 by itself, if we're looking at cost for water, runs about a half a cent a gallon, or about $5.30 a 1,000 gallons. So at wherever you're at, 471, I think,
566.
566, that in itself would move your rate substantially.
It would, absolutely. So we calculated on the 363 for what we have, what was approved last month. Is that am I understanding that correctly? We did not calculate on the 283, we calculated on the 363, correct? For the
wasn't-
decision?
I wasn't here for that meeting, so I don't know.
The
So
one-
may I ask,
The one
Mayor?
where the water advisory was?
Water, your
No,
guys' joint.
don't blame that on the water advisory board.
No, yeah, your guys' joint meeting, I wasn't here for, so I don't know.
Okay,
So what was the total budget required for this fiscal year that we looked at? We came in 1.134 million. And that came in at 555,000 for personnel and materials. 80,000 for contingency, 283 for capital outlay, and 216 for debt service. Those are your existing loans that you have to pay every year to whomever they go. And everything that we looked at was based on a 3-year average. Water production, water sales, unaccounted for water, all this kind of stuff. We're not gonna take an anomaly year and just say everything's gonna be based on that. We have to look at, a 3, sometimes communities ask us for a 5-year historical review of that. But normally 90% of the time we do a 3-year review. So did that help with the SDCs, and are we all on the same page as far as total budget for the water department?
Yes.
Okay. Questions?
My only question is, Tim, when you guys looked at the CIP list, did you look at the current or did you look at the 2018?
No, current, we had Jonathan from AKS send us the updates. And I actually have that. It's, well, yeah, I got the four numbers right here.
Okay.
Yeah, we have 381, 293, 230, and 82. The 82's gone from the filter media, because that was the one that was on the list. So we have 3, anyway, we took that, we divided it over the 3-year time span, and that's how we came up with the 360,000. Give or take about 11 or 12,000, but part of that was from your contingency funds as well. So we actually went with a 283,000 for CIP.
So just for conversation piece also, like on that list that we gave you, we've completed, I believe, 3 of those now. Because we've done Hemlock and 3rd Street and filter media. So just for information piece.
No, that's good, because come next March, you need to have a new list generated to come back to the mayor and the council and say, these are gonna be our next. If we finish these 3, and understand your budget's gonna be frozen as far as your capital improvement for the next 3 years. But if you're going to finish projects faster, then you're gonna be moving projects ahead up, but your budget line is still the 360, okay? If you get delayed because of supply chain issues, personnel issues, meaning you don't even have enough personnel to do it, contractors are running short on workforce, lots of different things get delayed, so we delay that for a year, but we're still generating those incomes through the rates. So that, you'll build a little bit and you'll pull it out, you build a little bit, you pull a little bit out. But that capital line item that we want, you can set it whatever you want. If you set it super high, $1 million, you get a lot of stuff fixed tomorrow. If you keep postponing or you set it extremely low, the system continues to chug along and nothing gets fixed. Therefore, then you end up having, it's gonna cost you more tomorrow than it was yesterday. So we're just trying to kind of hold serve in a different format. We're gonna, instead of, we're gonna change your tires to get you better mileage. You're not gonna see an impact on it right now, but we're gonna get you better tires, better air pressure to get you better mileage, to get you farther down the road. Is kind of in my mind, the perfect way to explain it.
Can I ask Jason a question?
no, what are this work session we're doing?
Projects you do.
Contingency and SDC.
I guess I have, Kim, you're pretty deep into the water situation. This is sounding all exactly right, correct?
Yeah, and we're sitting really healthy in the water fund right
And do you feel like the last presentation that was given was maybe not correct? There's a big difference.
now. I wasn't at the
Mhm.
last.
But that dollar amount seemed excessive to you?
Yes.
What dollar amount?
Not the one with Tim.
No.
No, not for you, Tim, but it was proposed to us
Previous work session.
the previous work session to raise the rates to 107 and change.
For the base rate for everybody.
To compensate for the monies that were moved, because we didn't understand it was factored into your study.
Okay, it's just when you have a past conversation, you start to use
Sorry.
pronouns, I'm lost.
My bad.
No, I just have to,
Get caught up, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to leave it, but I just want to make sure that that was well-intentioned and not accurate information that we got last time.
Did we receive a report for that one?
It was pretty much just a verbal report, wasn't it, from the last session? I didn't
it's
see
verbal, it
anything.
didn't happen
Right.
then. Yeah, I'm pushing your buttons a little.
No, I agree. It just, this is way better news for the town.
So I think a couple key points from the takeaway from this study. Let's just simply talk 3 specific items. 4, okay? Your base rates, the consumption rates, and how we got to where we're at, okay? The first, for lack of a better term, is you have an imbalance, okay? If you believe a 3-year time frame and 3-year cycle and a cost of delivery at $14.34 for 1,000 gallons, okay? That's less than a penny and a half a gallon, okay? You are just under what the state average is. So 1.4 cents per gallon delivery to a tap is pretty darn cheap water, in my opinion, okay? Where the imbalance comes in is your consumption rate, current consumption rate. Okay, now I'm not talking about the rates that you had, you just increased 10% across the board. I'm not talking about these that you just posted. This was August of 2023. Are these your current rates?
I'd have to put my glasses on.
The 566?
Mhm.
Okay, that's what I thought, and thank you for sending that to me. I'm not talking about that particular rate, I'm talking the rate that was at 471. That was before we did the 10% increase across the board, okay?
Oh, that was back in 2022.
That's when we started this rate study, that's what your current rate was, okay? So it went from 471 to 566. So I'm not looking at these new numbers, I'm looking at what was status quo when we started this study, okay? I have to keep apples and apples, you know, otherwise I get confused. So there's a couple things going on that creates this imbalance. First and foremost, you can either look at your allowance, which you're very generous at 4,000 gallons for the residential users, okay? Or you look at your charge per unit, which was too low at 471, okay? And how do we factor that out? We have to have a foundation to look at where we're at on the cost of delivery. So by giving an allowance of 4,000 gallons each month, that times 1434 creates a $57 deficit, bang, out the door. Okay, that is what it's costing you to deliver that water. And we don't ever consider, well, I don't use that water. That's a moot point. It's already fixed into your rates, so we have to at least address it, okay? So at the 6662, which was your old base rate, and when I'm speaking again, let me clarify, we're talking single family residential dwellings. They make up 90+% of your users. Okay, so I'm not gonna talk about a specific mill or a school or a winery that's gonna use 1 million gallons a month. They're kind of out in left field as far as this study. We have to address it, but it's not as critical as looking at the picture from the single family residential. Your charge per unit was way too low. So how do we fix that? We either raise the rate for consumptions and or lower the allowance, okay, which kind of gives us a double-edged sword because we have to then look at the total monthly rate for that single-family residential user. Because you're cutting them twice. You're gonna cut the allowance and then increase the consumption cost, okay? So we don't wanna do that. So when we were talking at, I think, the March 2022 meeting, we decided to leave the allowances exactly where they're at. 4,000 gallons for single-family residential users. So where does that, how does that apply to what your old rates were? When I say your old rates before you did it August 2023. The $57.36 delivery cost, you created a $9.26 surplus for each single family resident. So you're making a little more than $9, okay? Which is fine. But you move that to 8,000 gallons. Do we have single family residential people using 8,000 gallons? Absolutely, okay? That delivery cost is $114. But yet you're only charging them $85. With the current structure, before you went to up to 10%, your typical bill for 8,000 gallons was $85, but yet it's costing you $114
Reduce the water.
to produce and deliver that water. So we went, that kind of got the light bulb a little bit brighter for me. So we talked about lowering the allowances. We're like, no, let's not do that. So then I said, okay, in our train of thought, then we have to kind of gain a little bit more money in order to cover that delivery cost. And that's when we recommended to go to $78, which would have been about $11 increase. I have $11.77, about $12 a month increase. So if we look at what the average user was using at 5.7 units or 5,700 gallons, okay, they would have had at about probably about a $17 a month increase on an average usage. So 5,700 gallons, you're gonna pay somewhere about $85. Okay, so we thought that's probably the best way to go. Then we started talking about the consumption rate and building in tiers. So let's just put the tiered structure completely aside. Okay, because it gets really expensive. I don't remember the total bill, but I think it was like over 11 or 13 bucks for a unit of water. So let's look at so are we on the same page for the base rate? We're at 66, you went to 73, we recommended 78. Based on an average usage, it's gonna be about another 17 bucks a person. Okay, and we have to look at the averages, okay? But let's look to see how the consumption rates are impacted by what we're doing here, what we suggested, what you guys have done, and where we're coming full circle. The 471 and the 570, the old rates, which are now 566 and 684, they're considered way too low up against your production cost. At 1434 and 470, you're darn close to 10 bucks in the rear just as you start out the gate. So we thought, let's get rid of the tiered structure and go to a minimum charge of $9.50. Now, some of you have gone in your head mathematically go from 471 to 566, and Tim's sitting here saying 950. 950 gets you to what, $1.134 million budget. $9.50 will get you your capital improvement plan. It covers all your debt service, you know, and it's paying for stuff that you're not going to create any debt. You're not going to have any loan, you're not going to be interest, you're not going to be carrying this out 3 or 4 or 8 councils after the next 30, over the next 30 years. I'm assuming you're not all be here in 30 years, okay? So if you wanted to adopt the base rates that we recommended, and we recommended a set of base rates that were fair right out of the gate. Okay, meter multiplier, American Water Works Association standards cannot be contested. Okay, and then if you apply that and then do the 950, who's ever going to use whatever water, they'll just pay the $9.50 and move on. It's fair. There's no, you can't argue that point. If your allowance is lowered to 2,000 gallons, okay, so we're going to pull a little bit away and keep the same base rate, then we know a unit rate can come down to $7. And some people would say, well, 7 is better than 950. Okay, but where we lose it is your larger consumptions. That's why we put that increasing tiered structure in, because the more water they're going to use, the division factor is by a much larger number. You get a much smaller number coming out the gate. So that's why we sort of suggested the tiered structure. So someone, you're not gonna get in that same boat. Someone's gonna be using 80,000 gallons, you're gonna be $1,200 in the rears. Okay, I think, I don't know the exact numbers, I'm staring at the guy who did the math for me on one, that I believe on some of the water districts, you should have been doubling their rate because you're losing those much funds. And I'm not talking about that's where we're going to this day. What I'd like to see from this meeting is a better understanding on the reasons why we went where we went, okay? You can, in the report, not gonna be a very fun thing to say, but you gotta read it, because that's what we look at. It's one of the things we look at. I haven't found there yet. I'll call it out as soon as I get it.
I'm on 6. I don't know if that helps any.
No.
No?
I write these things, you'd think I would be able to jump right to it. Everybody's calling out all these different numbers. Page 5.
5?
Page 5. You took the entire budget and divided it by 12 and divided by 603 users, everybody pays $156. That doesn't sound very much fair, does it? Because you have George and Henrietta who use 1,000 gallons a month and they're gonna pay 156. Okay, that's not fair. So we thought, okay, what does George and Henrietta need? Well, they might need only a 2,000 gallon allowance, but we can't turn around and cherry pick and say they get 2,000 gallons allowance, they get 4,000 gallons and they get 0, and you know, what have you. It's very, very common what you're already doing, 4,000 for residential, commercial, industrial, outside users get 0 allowance. That's pretty common. If you wanted to go a true meter ratio and allow those allowances, your unit rate's gonna go to 15, 16, 18 bucks a unit. You're just gonna be giving away way too much water. We can't afford that. You can't afford that. Even though your water cost to deliver is really cheap. Okay, for the lack of maintenance, for the conversations Jason and I have, and the lack of maintenance is happening for the last 10 years, or no maintenance at all, you've done pretty well about keeping your expenses down. And so now I guess it's kind of time to, you know, put a blanket under the saddle and ride a little harder, so to speak, okay? So I'm not in favor of lowering the allowance down to 2,000, so you can get your unit rate to 7. But that is an option for the council to consider. Leave the base rate as we recommended at the 78, not the 73. So you'd have to go through and do another rate adjustment. Okay, but the way we've looked at things today, we have predicted with these numbers here, okay, and I have to base my numbers on the average price sold, not what this lady's going to tell me differently. We're gonna see an estimate gross revenues at 778,000 between now and July of 2024. And that comes in about $325,000 shortfall from the 1.13 that we wrote the study based on. Okay, that's using your numbers as they are.
But
Now you just negated everything I said.
we're at 60% right now in revenue. We're only in the 5th month. So I think we're gonna hit our budgeted. We are gonna hit it with excess.
But you've gone through the summer months and sold a lot of water. Wait till you go through the winter months and not sell any water. See, We run across this all the time. No, and please, I really make light of this stuff. It's just, when I say the average user is using, when the report says 5,700 gallons on average for a single family residential dwelling, okay, that's fine. That's average water from winter, summer, spring, and fall, okay? When you have someone pounding on your door or Angie's door and just saying, my water bill just tripled. And you say, okay, and they say, I don't believe it, then we have to be able to take care of our citizens and go back and prove the difference. Your water bill was $190, it's normally $80, okay, well, at the $80, you've used this much water and you've tripled the amount of water. Instead of the 5,700 gallons, you just use 22,000 gallons of water. That has to be explained in order to justify where we're at, okay? Everybody absolutely understands from $4.71 to $5.66 to $9.50, you're gonna have a significant increase. But it's always up to that person that if they wanna continue to use that water and pay for it, or do they wanna be better manage their gardens and lawns and, you know, I mean, everybody has skin in this game on, and I'm not sitting here telling people on how they should live their lives. You know, I'm just saying, if we don't take care of the water department first, the water department will not be here for the citizens to have delivered water. We're talking delivery of water 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And the problem we have with that is personnel go on vacation, they go on conferences to get training. Does the water system stop? No. These two guys, this whole room could leave tomorrow and not come back for a week and that water system will still be flowing. Per se, we've become extremely complacent about the cost of water. And by being complacent, we don't give the tools, and the primary tool to keep a water system running is finances. It takes money to do everything. So maybe we were a little too aggressive on the capital improvement plan. Maybe, I don't know. That's for your decision to make. Maybe adding a 283,000 for the capital improvement was too much. But I think it's a very good start to let this thing run and see what the system how the system can improve. I think the one thing that sticks in my head from the last meeting was the compliments on the quality of water since the filter media had been changed out. And I know for a fact, the last public works director had been talking about changing out that media when that person was here. So proof is in the pudding, I guess. I guess my last comment is, and then we'll open it up to questions, is with these particular rates right here, the minimum unit cost would go to $13 in order to meet the $1.13 million budget. And I think that's exorbitantly high, particularly for someone who's going to use 8,000 gallons of water. They're going to see it from a $77 bill to probably 127 bucks. And that's a lot of money for just doubling the water quantity. So we're trying to make it as fair for everybody.
But that's what we need. Meet the budget is $13.
Well, to,
If you hold the current rates you're using.
not the
again-
proposed, but the ones that are currently being built.
It was a
And that's for the
nice,
8,000 gallon or more, is that correct for
I
the?
didn't do any figuring on that,
Okay.
Mayor. That's figuring, units of water sold. And I can only guess, we can't guess, we can only use that average. I think you sell 68 million units or 68 million gallons or 68,000 units or something to that nature. We have to base that on what you sell. I can't turn around and say, well, the production facility generates 100 million gallons, but you're only selling 68. I can't base it on 100 million gallons because you're not selling 100 million gallons. You're not selling 100,000 units. You're only selling on average 68,000 units. So a couple things can happen here. You have better water quality coming out of the treatment plant. That's gonna create better mechanical or longer mechanical integrity for the distribution system. So once the distribution system becomes fully intact and you're losing, we'll say 10% water, then that means more water is getting to the meters and more water is getting to the meters, and the meters are more accurate. Then we have a very good justification to hold or freeze rates until we look at your capital improvement. But you're kind of starting, you just got the football and you're not on the goal line, you're in the back of the end zone starting to go that way. So you're kind of minus 10 yards before you even get on the field. Okay, or your pitcher is standing on second base throwing pitches to the opposite team. You just have been in this losing pattern, you know, because of essentially the incremental rate increases. And that's not to say that things were done wrong, but it's extremely difficult for you to make a decision. I would not expect you to make any decisions that OAW helped you to get to unless we could not justify, clarify, and create that transparency for you to be comfortable with these decisions. Now, I know it's not gonna be, you know, it's gonna be a sour lemon for somebody to chew on, but we feel we're pretty confident that that's what's right for this water department. And I'll tell you the same thing on the wastewater side too. You know, that might be a totally different animal, I don't know, but you know, it's just, we expect the water department to stand on its own 2 feet. We don't expect the general fund to supplement water, we don't expect water to supplement the general fund. You're not gonna take water out and put it in the parks, you're not gonna, you know, it's just a very clean way to budget. And I'm not a municipal budget lawyer at all. She knows more about it than I do, you know, ask her. But, you know, we're just, from an operational perspective, from a managerial perspective, and from a financial perspective, we know these numbers will work. You know, and that's why we say we come back in a year. We take this water tracking chart, it's on the very back of the page 27. And we have this being completed as each and every month goes on with these new rates, to kind of see where you're at. And it basically takes the idea that's on this page, and puts it out in the real world. This is theory, that's reality. And we have to be able to track to see if we're on target. You know, I'm not expecting a Robin Hood every time, but I'm expecting to come in where the budget, the expenses and the revenues match up really close. Really close. And I will venture to say, share with you that lots of times our recommendations come about 6-8% higher than what we had thought was gonna come in. Because that's because of the conservative side that we put in to these rate studies. And when I mean conservative side, I would love to see a tiered structure go in here. Because a tiered structure matches up with rules, it's a recommendation, it's not a requirement, but the tiered structure really wakes people up to the expense of water. And that's where the conservation mindset comes in. I don't even know if you need conservation mindset, but I have heard that when you're on a water curtailment because you're not be able to produce enough water, that's pretty darn scary. If you had in your reserves 1.2 million, you're able to fix everything tomorrow and you're not losing a lot of water and you've got plenty of water in the river and you're whatever water you're making, you're using, that's a win-win. But we can't go from A to Z overnight. And I don't think with this study, the 360,000 that we're asking for, well, we only asked for 283, but the 360,000, I think it really did fit in that capital improvement that was presented by your engineering firm. Questions? Thoughts?
Would that consumption rate be for everybody, including outside?
Yeah, the 950.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's gonna be a single tier. I reran the numbers. 950.
Has any questions about the tier system?
What is the increments?
Right here.
I didn't.
You didn't read this, you didn't read it. 950, 1140, and 1368 inside, 1140, 1368, and 1642 outside.
But the gallons or the
Can you read
units?
those again?
The 950, 1140, and 1368 inside.
You can pick up a copy at the front desk. You can pick up a copy at the front desk tomorrow if you'd like.
Thank you. So when those tiers kick in. Oh, sorry.
For a 3/4 inch, single family residential, it's 4,000 to 8,000 would be tier 1, 4,001, obviously because you have 4,000 allowance. Tier 2 would be 8 to 12, and anything above 12 would be tier 3. It would hold true to this if it was a single tier, except the single tier would be this all the way to 0 out the gate, all the way up.
And that's both inside and outside city limits.
Yes. Page 19. Sorry about that, I just figured everybody's looking the same page as I am.
So for really the first time, I think I'm getting it. And
Same.
I'm
A
I'm
lot of
understanding.
information, but I'm.
No,
It's clicking though this time, and I
Mhm.
appreciate that you spelling it out for us. Was hugely helpful.
and to be honest with you, it's humbling because I do a half a dozen to 8 of these a year, and it's just what I do. Okay, and when I say it's humbling because I'm expecting everybody else to grasp this, just like, okay, it's just a conversation, it's okay. But there is an awful lot of information, and thank you for sharing it. Yeah, it's kind of, the light bulb's getting brighter.
We're grateful you took the time to come here and
Yes, thank you.
share that with us. We really are.
No, you're
Because
welcome.
we needed to hear, we just needed to hear that.
I was really far away. I was down in McMinnville training today, so it worked out. It was meant to be, to me. Yeah, and I told my boss that, and he's all, do it, just get it done.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Thank
so,
you.
Thank you.
yeah, and it's on him too. So it's a group effort. It really is.
It takes a village.
I don't know if it's gonna help making, to ease the decision.
Well, it really actually does, because it gives us better perspective. We weren't getting an overall perspective of, we thought we were going into mass debt. We needed to resolve that quickly. And we needed to do capital improvement projects. How are we gonna do that if we're losing money because we're not getting paid enough for the water that we're putting out? And so we lose money on every gallon. So we were panicking, to say.
You were fine at the 5,700 gallon mark, I think. I think I ran the numbers, it's almost darn near break even, but you can't run a system, you can't run any business on a break even, on cost in and cost out, or revenue in, cost out. So having said that, that's why I brought up the idea of the 8,000 gallons, you're losing $29 a month if someone's using 8,000 gallons of water. We won't even talk about.
No.
I didn't say a word, I'm just stretching my neck. I mean, it's tense in here. So I guess the other 800-pound gorilla in here is your water districts. They are your water districts.
Yeah.
They use a lot of water. You can ask both of my boys, I'm fair across the board. Whatever one gets, the other one gets, or whatever one doesn't get, the other one doesn't get. Except if you ask my older one, the little one got it faster, and that's not the truth. that's why I wanted to go and offer that idea of 950 out the gate. Hold it for a year and see what you get. You know, use the base rates that we recommended, go to a $9.50. Look at just the efficiencies on your end,
Yep.
the efficiencies, delivery and that kind of stuff. See how you can get your water usage down. And then hold it for a year, track it with this tracking chart. And, I'll stay true to my word. You give me the new numbers, the brand new budget, I'll drop it all across and we'll come up with an idea that we are either on target or we missed it. And if we missed it, I'll be the first one to say I missed it. But if I missed it based on the information I have, that's on us. If we miss it based on incorrect, like SDC money, you know, you can't use SDC money because you don't collect $100,000 every year in SDCs. You know, you might collect $300,000 in SDCs because big subdivision's going in. Part of that money's gotta be in to get to that, to get to the subdivision, and then you don't collect it anymore. So that's why we really like to just have you freeze the SDC money as long as you can. And, you know, it's, yeah. If you can get AKS to do an SDC review, I don't know if they do it. A lot of the engineering firms are shying away from it. There's maybe a half a dozen I can know. If you want to send me an email, I'll send you to do an SDC study. They're extremely complicated, but they will really let you know if you're charging enough money to do your system hookups. How much do you charge for your SDCs?
I don't have them handy.
Oh, just
Angie, they're on
On
the,
the website.
Angie can. They increase every year. I know that with the
CPI,
Mhm.
Consumer Price Index.
Mhm. I wanna say about 7,000 for one.
And it's another fee for wastewater.
Mhm.
Do you have anything related to stormwater?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
This is.
Sparkling.
what's being
What,
proposed.
what's one?
So the water
The,
SDC?
Water is
nine,
6,955 and sewer is 4,140.
With the.
And then stormwater is-
Rates. Base
Stormwater
rates.
is 1,907.
I do too.
Okay,
Makes
And
sense to
then
me.
you say they increase every year, but when's the last time you did a formal study?
I know.
Uh,
And the tier.
What's the year of the resolution?
I don't think the resolution's listed.
Might want to just.
Jason, the rate
It's due to
studies,
be
was it
reviewed soon, I believe.
2017?
16, I believe.
You had a formal system development charge study done in 2016.
I think so.
Yeah. And was it recommended by the engineering firm to use a CPI for that adjustment?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, might want to go back and look at that study. If that's the case, and you're spot on, you've been doing it every year, great. I do think it's necessary you have another one done. Just because prior to COVID, a stick of pipe was about $117, $107. Now it's over $300. This is for a 20-foot.
I know we're cheaper than any surrounding city. Put it that way.
Yeah, but we don't want to compare you to anybody else. You guys are special. I mean, it's apples and asparagus. You just don't want to get into comparisons.
All right, so council, if you'll look at your rate study at Roman numeral 6, page 6.
Mine is 18.
It's in there twice.
You say you're on
There's
page
mine.
6?
6 or 18.
6 or 18. It's not on mine. Oh, right there. Okay.
Same thing, right?
I think so.
So everyone's gonna
Okay,
do
yeah,
that.
that's the one, 18. What do you think? I do too.
That's what we presented the first time.
There's a lot,
Get it.
there's a lot to get, and I think we're finally getting it all just put together.
So
Exactly.
this is about an 8% increase for
From this
I
to
like
this.
it.
Okay, council, you have page 18?
well, from what we have.
Are you
now.
reviewing it?
Mhm.
This is what we're looking at from the 3/4 down, where it says proposed rates, and then below the monthly rate comparisons with the tiers starting at 950 and working up to 1368. You're seeing all that?
Mhm.
So previously, we went away from this because we thought it wasn't going to be enough, is that what?
We did, because, yes, exactly, because we misunderstood and thought it was 363 that we were needing to
So that's
adjust to
where-
accommodate
yeah.
for.
Okay,
And it turns out that that's not accurate, that we're gonna, we only need to accommodate for the 283 lots to cover that. And that we've been insured that our CIP fund, water fund will be able to be supported and it'll all work out at the end of the year.
So that said, moving to page 24, that is the annual rate increases proposed.
Yes.
And those seem very reasonable also.
The commercials.
So
Big
note the footnote number 5 CPI in the very right-hand column,
Mhm.
Shay. That is based on a $2.88 or a 3.68% increase each and every year. That's the consumer price index associated with water and sewer maintenance. Okay, it's a basket of services lumped together. If the CPI holds true at 368, then those figures are just the adjustments that Kim will put into the software. Okay, and then those adjustments are also applied to the consumption price across the board for the next 3 years. And this
That goes
happens.
up to 4.1, you throw that number in there and adjust it out. And it's,
You can, there's a lot of people look at things a little bit idiosyncratically. I don't know, the idiosyncrasies of the CPI. Some people want to say, in February, I want to know what 2023 was, so we're gonna add that. Okay, the problem with that is it gets really cumbersome for those that do it. Okay, what we like to do is go back a 5-year plan, and on one of the pages in here, there's a link that Kim can go right online, and you can go right online and plug in 5 years earlier to this year and what the rate was, and then you hit the calculate button and it will tell you exactly what to increase it.
Okay.
And then that's a 5-year running average. So you can go through the 2019 and 20 peak when we're up at 7% for water, wastewater, and then look at that average. I like flattening that curve out so we don't get these huge increases. And then what happens is you have a positive CPI. And then, well, you're not gonna ever lower the rates. I mean, I'm just telling you, I mean, it's, you know, it is what it is. You know, so what we did, we flattened out that curve. That's a 5-year timeline for you. And it goes all the way up to 2026. The date is July 1 of that year is when those new rates come into effect. So it matches up with your fiscal year. So a couple things that you're gonna really wanna focus on. What your new budget will be. We think the 555, the numbers we ran for this year should be pretty close with some minor adjustment, but you're gonna get that adjustment through the CPI, okay? Unless you have something that's gonna wipe out the reserves and you don't like that. But our goal here is July 1 of this year, you're collecting more revenues and you're spending more revenues. So let's just say, I don't know what your beginning balance was in July 1 of this year for your reserves, okay, your capital reserves. But let's just say it was 360. The guys are going to work, they're getting their contractors in, they're drawing money out of that every month or every couple, 3 months. And as it rolls back around, they've done their projects for the year. And oh my gosh, your balance is 360,000 because you generated that from the revenues. That's what our hope is. About every 3 years, you're gonna want, if you freeze it, truly freeze it, every 3 years, then in 4 years, at 4th year, you come back and say, where's our capital improvement project list? What is AKA's given us? These are crossed off, these are what's moving up. Some of those projects get really expensive because we're always going after that low hanging fruit. You know, that low hanging fruit right now is 283,000. Okay, each year, so we can get these projects done. Okay, what I'd like to see happen is Jason and Kyle go through the CIP and say, this got crossed off, that got pushed off a year, and readjust that. And then look at that average and say, you know what, our average is not 283, our average is 310 now this year. That is a very real move forward, you know. Or you may say, we got all of this done early, we could freeze the rates because we don't have any of these capital improvement projects due over the next set timeframe of an additional 3 years. Now we're talking clear to 2030, okay? But I would like to really have you hold serve and get these capital improvements, because that's the whole intent of this new study, is get improvements being made on the system. That makes sense for us? Keep improving the system so your highest quality of water is being delivered whenever anybody wants it. And that's a huge asset to the community.
Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Tice?
No, just thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Truly.
I'm with Kay on that. Thank you so much for coming back out and helping us out.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Just as much as I'm leaving here, I still want to know what you guys are doing. I want it to be kept up. You, Jason, you know, whether you're deciding on, because I'm just a little bit, I'll run some numbers. Whatever you decide, I'm gonna run numbers because I want to know. I want to know more than you want to know. I'm just weird that way. I mean, you're a success, you're a member of ours. You come to us for, I don't know how long, 30+ years, asking us for operational stuff, okay? And with our association, we're growing and we're moving not only into the operational stuff, but the management side and the conservation side and the financial side. And I'm done with the operational stuff. No offense, guys. It's not even exciting anymore. Water comes in, it purifies, it goes out. Woo! Wastewater goes in. Well,
That easy, right, Kyle?
it's not. Kyle knows. Yeah. But you know, so and when you have success here, you know, then and we were a part of that, then we can hold our heads high, you know, and that's what our association is about. We show up, we do our job, we do what we say we're gonna do, and you know, hope and brave. I'll work on this, but there's been times we've been wrong, we've missed stuff. We did a complete rate study all over again. And the new numbers that were given to us were so skewed from the original set of numbers. You know, we gave the money back to the district after the rate study. They didn't like it, we gave the money back. Said it was done, here's your report, here's your money. And after a year, they called us, that something's really wrong here. Numbers are totally skewed, we ran it again, they gave us a check back. So it's a win-win. It's a win-win. We got paid for our services and they now understand that they didn't make that adjustment, so they have $57,000 light that year. And with that particular district, they didn't do the CPI adjustment like we recommended. And they're wondering, how come we're shy on our funds? This is 2 years after the initial start, so.
We get it now.
So what's the decision?
We do get it now.
We do, we get it now. So I'm getting kind of a consensus. We can't make a decision in work session, but I'm getting a consensus. Does council have any input that they would like to present in where they're standing with this? Personally, I like the tier system.
I concur.
I do too.
And I don't want to shoot myself in the own foot, but maybe you want to do a single tier adjustment. Let me phrase that. This is based on normalcy, 20% increase from one tier to another. If you're at 950 and you're holding true to that for all water sold, maybe set a limit just for the water districts or just for the entire users, has a little bit of conservation, and say, we're gonna go to a tier at $11 and freeze it and just see where that kind of runs you on the revenue side. You know, and you know, again, I'm trying to be considerate, you know.
Accommodating.
Yeah, accommodating for all, and you know, the 950 and then $11, let's just say you double everything from a single family residential from 4,001 to 8,000 would be 950, and 8,000 and above, you're gonna go to 11. You're kind of doing the same thing, you're just not charging that 1368 above and beyond for those that really like to have a green lawn.
The over 12,000 gallons.
Yeah.
units.
Yes, no, 12,000 gallons, those are
Gallons,
gallons, it's
okay.
12 units. I mean, there's a lot of different ways varieties you can do this. I don't know, I do not want to persuade you in any which way, but I want to be able to make sure you have enough options to make it confusing.
Been down that road.
You know, so, maybe not implement the full 3 tiers to start, maybe just go 2-tier. And, adjust those numbers if you want to follow what we recommended in the report, that's pretty easy, so.
Personally, I like what you recommended in the report. This is treated water that is treated and served on a silver pipe. And to use it for watering mushrooms, I think that needs to be accommodated for. If
I'm
it
a
were,
fan of
if it were
mushrooms, so.
watering, if it were watering children or animals, that's different.
Yeah.
That's human life.
I don't have a whole lot of sympathy for driving down the street and finding it's 9 o'clock at night and the water's running down the curb because the water's been left on and someone went to
Yeah.
sleep. Okay, I do have some sympathy where there's a broken pipe somewhere on the private side of the property and they get it fixed. Yeah, there's some forgiveness there. That's an accident. Let's work with the people.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're gonna have those who are ultra conservative. They shower once a week, they use 1,000 gallons a month. And then you're gonna have the larger families are gonna be required, there's just, hygiene and, and cleanliness and food service and that stuff. They're gonna still use the water. And we have to be cognizant of that too, so.
And with like the mushrooms and wineries, they're using the water and they're selling that and making money off of it. So I
It's
mean,
commercial, yeah.
Yeah, and in commercials, a totally different animal. Inside, outside's different. The city collects its tax revenues for those users that are inside the city boundaries. They don't get that extra, stipend of tax money from outside users. So, there's a reason to, adjust the rates accordingly. When it comes to commercial stuff, I had a lady said, if you raise the rates $5, I run an ice cream shop and I'm gonna have to close the business. And I'm like, then you're giving your ice cream away for too cheap. Cause I don't know how many ice cream cones she has to sell for $5 a month, but gotta look at the bigger picture here. So there's a lot of different mindsets and that's what's hard to. Why we shouldn't get into each other's minds.
Stay out of my head. Okay, so sounds like we're fairly on the same page. This is the opportunity for discussion. This is the opportunity for questions. If you are even an inkling unsure of how you will present your decision, then now's the time to speak up, say something, ask questions.
Yes, please.
I like the 3-tier. So
Three-tier.
you'll get more people conserving water.
And the proposed base rates.
Mhm. I like it how it was proposed.
I do too. I very much do too.
I think it's fair across the board.
I do too. I do too. I do, however, want to lean towards a 0 tier for those senior adults who use the $1,000, or 1,000 gallons a month. I do want to lean there.
Like add that in there.
Is there a reason or a way, or is there a reason not to do that? To have like she said, called it tier 0, where, because there was one person that contacted us and said, I don't shower but once a week because I don't want to pay for the water. I mean, that's terrible, but I mean, my God, if you're really trying that hard to save $1,
You're
maybe,
paying for it.
sure.
But
The amount of people that are doing that are like minimal, correct, Ken?
I'm sure.
Is there any reason that we couldn't just say, leave that tier alone or drop it to back to the previous of the 66, 62? To like, I don't know, 1,500 gallons or something? I mean, how hard does that make billing for you, Kim?
It would be the tiering that would I can't put a specific rate on 1,000 gallons or less, so
I see.
the tier thing.
Anytime
And
you
there's
go to-
maybe people who don't use that much.
I mean, there's a lot of people that pay the minimum every month, but I don't know, under 1,000, I'm not
No, I
sure.
was looking at it today and there's maybe 10.
Then it's a $12 difference. Look at the bottom, page
Is it?
18, yeah. A month. It's not, I mean, $12 is $12, it's a lot of money, but at the same time, it's not really.
3 Dutch Bros coffees. That might be important to some. I mean, I like my coffee, don't get me wrong. When you start getting and making small adjustments for a very small percentage, it's going to drive Kim and Angie crazy on the software. If you start at 15, then you have to look at the ratios of 1,500 gallons to 4,000. You know, if you want to do 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000, those are much simpler ratios to be able to run. And then if you have that, if you start at 15, do they have any tiers after that? Because why do they need a tier if they're only gonna consistently use 1,500 gallons or less? It's almost like, this is all you get, this is what you pay. To me, it complicates the process. It just complicates.
I understand.
As much as I've thrown at you, I like to keep it simple.
We would too.
Okay, I don't have any questions or discussions. Anybody else? No? All right. Let's continue on our work session and move to new business, which is budget preparation considerations for 2025, which I believe involves a proposal from Mr. Ross. And Mr. Tice, you're welcome to stay because we will have a special session where we'll be making decisions if you want to hang out for that. I don't know that that's going to be too long.
I was hoping to be out by 7. It's 20 till now. But I will, what's that?
I said, I'm hoping that I'm out. by 7.
I
Not
don't
that
think,
not that I want you out. by 7.
I'm thinking, I think we need to hold true. I think you're well informed. You make that decision. I will throw out there that whatever questions you've been addressed by the public, if you want clarification on that stuff, write the question down and send it to me by email, or have Jason or Kim give me a ring and we'll kind of discuss it. And if you don't want to make the decision tonight, but I'm not here to answer questions from the public. It's just too many minds of interpretation on that, so. You're being kind enough to have me here, get this done, and yeah, I started at 6 this morning, I'm going.
How the tiers
Ready to go?
work with the outside water district.
I'm ready to go.
Well, thank you then.
Be free.
Thank you.
Be free.
And drive safe.
An answer to that.
Yeah.
Do you mean on the district?
On the water districts, if you do a tier
right.
structure, how will that work in?
There'll be a
your
chance
bill?
for public comment before a decision's made, if that helps your discussion.
Thanks, Tim.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All the tiers are on page 24. I think page 24. They will show your tier breakdown per size.
Yes, but what are you gonna do with the different tier structure of the outside water districts when each one has a different number of users?
All right, there will be an opportunity for public comment.
It would just be on the end.
There it is, 24.
You guys have a great Christmas.
Thank you so
Same
much for
here.
Be
coming
here
back.
before you turn around twice.
It will be. All right, new business, 2025 budget preparation consideration proposal submitted, budget planning proposal submitted by Ross Schultz on October 29th for consideration. And from reviewing it, he's giving us a timeline and he's recommending that, or requesting that we, if we're interested, hire him to walk the city through their budget process this year. And he's outlined exactly how we should do that. And how much it will cost the city to utilize his services. He gave, not approximately, but he gave cost estimates. I'm hoping he can stay within those. Because he says 46 hours. How does he know? How does he know 46 hours?
Was he, did a previous, did he do that previously?
No, because it was adjusted multiple times and he was initially working through the cog.
Okay,
And then he,
that's right, yeah.
yeah, was hired independently, so there was the adjustments there. But this would be in place of going to the cog to hire their services and contract with them.
And this is what staff wants?
And we're hoping, that he will mentor our accounting person. And that they would be able to, I have no doubt that that person would be able to do the budget.
Grasp it and run with it, and you're in agreement?
So
Dave?
for next year,
Well, I talked to Ross quite extensively, and he knows me well enough to know I just asked the blunt questions. What he intends to do is what he couldn't do with the last year's budget, with the challenges that were presented, is to do whatever the staff in the city want to have done for the budget committee, to be able to do the budget this year's correctly and with the issues, and then to work on next year's budget. He wants to start immediately. He also indicated that he wants to work with some of the things that he's very well aware of with Public Works and their projects, and to help in the budget to be able to implement those projects.
And you're for that?
I'm sorry?
You're for that?
I'm for whoever would be best that council chooses to do that. And at this point, from what I have seen with Ross, he has the experience. He didn't have the time to do what needed to be done that he wanted to do last year. And that was expressed even when he was doing it last year of what the challenges were. There isn't enough
and
time.
there was some frustration with that.
But he got paid for it though, right?
I'm sorry?
But he got paid for all that.
He did get
He
paid.
got.
He did get paid. And this is not contracted through the call. So this is contracted, it would be him.
Independently.
And it's, do I understand correctly that $6,795? Is it,
That's
wasn't
what-
it 14,000 through COG?
For what?
Something similar through COG?
How much was the
I
cog?
don't have anything in front of me, sorry.
I don't know why, it just seemed like it was 14 grand. I thought we'd spend.
I'm not
that,
sure
but
if
it's
part of that
possible.
was recruitment too.
Oh, maybe. That very well give you what that sticks out and why.
But there is, COG did provide an updated list of what their charges would be, and it would be considerably different if we contracted through them opposed to what this.
Considerably different.
Like more
Higher?
expensive?
For similar services,
For the same service.
same
And
services.
somebody who doesn't know our particular situations.
Yeah, we know him. We know we can work with him. We know he's,
He's a nice man.
yeah.
As long as staff's okay, then.
Staff? Jason?
Public
Kyle,
Works?
your thoughts?
No, you gotta grow
I
along.
work well with Ross. I mean,
You got along well with
I
Ross?
got along with Ross and he educated me on a number of things. So that's what I have.
Kyle, your thoughts?
I'm with whatever they're.
Do we think he's gonna be able to do it within the 46 hours
He probably took his numbers from,
last year?
I would imagine. I like the outline though, which
It
means
wasn't
we're
good.
behind schedule already, so. we
I
need
won't have to work with him.
Oh,
So we got two city managers or?
He's not being hired as a city manager.
Just
Just
consultant.
Contract services to help with budget.
Where is that coming out of the budget?
Good question.
Public contract services.
Contract services?
Water, wastewater?
Yeah, out of,
Any fund that has contract services in it.
they all have contract services in them?
Any fund that has contract services, not every fund does.
Carl, do you have a copy of this?
No, I just.
Did you see the numbers though at the end? They're talking about $6,700.
Oh.
As
The
opposed to
general
a full-time.
fund, Water, sewer, I mean,
General fund.
a big portion of the budget is water.
I was
and
expecting
sewer.
it to be
A zero or something, yeah, yeah, no,
like previously.
I find that to be affordable and good.
Yeah. That changes my mind.
And he's willing to come here multiple times. So.
Can I ask a quick question? So if we have to have a Zoom call with him or we have to have immediate service from him, does that calculate into the 46 hours?
That's the hope.
Or I guess what I'm saying is I don't want to calculate, like if I need him more, I don't want to breach our contract. Yeah.
I would coordinate with Greg then and say, you know, so everybody's not calling him and whatever, and
Yeah.
maybe do a list of questions and do a.
Group call, maybe or something. Just organize it enough that you're.
The program of that would be listening to stuff and coordinating it with you.
Maybe set up weekly meeting times that you can zoom in as a group. Suggestions. Sure you'll figure it out. Right, any questions on this? Any?
Seems reasonable.
Good things? Definitely. Okay. I like the timeline. I like
Like a
that
motion?
we get to see action happening. Awesome.
Good with that?
To adjourn?
No, do we need a motion for this?
We can't,
In work session.
Okay, well,
we need a motion to adjourn.
We
though.
do need a motion.
I
to
make a
adjourn.
motion, we adjourn.
We are adjourned. All right, flip the page over. We bring the city council meeting special session to order. On, oh, I didn't do that before, on Wednesday, November 29th, 2023 at 6:48 PM. May I get a roll call, please?
Corrigan here.
Esky here.
H.R. here.
Laura here.
Adine here.
All right, we are now open for public comment. You may comment on either the water rate study or the budget proposal, budget planning proposal. I'll start, please.
I just have some questions if you're gonna do the tiering. One of my questions is, how does that work with the outside water districts? Because you've got multiple districts, multiple users, different users, amounts of users on each line. So how are you going to do the tiering on those? Are we gonna be the 8,000, as soon as we hit 4,000 gallons, we're gonna be the higher rate the whole time? Or are you gonna go by the users and tier it out by, there's so many users, you get X amount of gallons at this price, and then the next tier, X amount of gallons at that price? So that's my question on the tiering part.
That's
Okay.
kind of giving an allowance for users.
Yeah,
Like
trying
you
to
have 33 users
We have 33
times
users.
4,000.
So when do you start the tiering? How do you do the tiering? Because it's
Well,
just,
for us, the city, the districts are one user, correct? And
Right
then
now,
the
yes.
district then divides it up according to how many.
how many users we have.
So the district does the billing to the individuals,
Yes,
and we just do the billing to the district, the one line?
yes.
Okay.
So how that's gonna work.
So would that tier system roll over to how you then bill
We'll have
the
to
individual
figure it out.
users?
And that's gonna be a complication, because we'll have to take, I'm not sure how we're gonna do that, because we have a lot of 2,000, 3,000 gallon users also. So if you're not doing a,
So you could implement a tier 0 for your,
But
Well-
she's still paying the.
I still got same price, I can't do that. So if we're gonna use
Yeah.
the
I get it.
the meter rate will go up to, which is fine, I don't have, it, but the tiering is confusing. It's gonna be very confusing for how the outside water districts are gonna deal with however you deal.
Like an allowance for.
Yeah, so if you're gonna start your after 4,000 gallons, are you gonna allow us 33 times 4,000 gallons for all of our users on the line, and then we step to the next tier?
That'd be 132,000.
Yeah, and then after that, if you keep tiering, when are you gonna do it by however many users are on each outside district, how are you going to do your tiering? That's my question.
So currently, and let's just use the 12,001 tier 3, just to give it, you know, a good number. Currently, the city would bill for 12,001,
Mhm.
which would be the 1368 per unit per 1,000 gallons, right?
Yeah.
And then you receive that bill. Do you then divide that bill up according to usage?
We bill by usage. We
By
have
usage,
no
okay.
minimums. We just, so much a meter and however many gallons of water they use.
So you would need to do 1368 per usage. So for every 1,000 gallons, you would be charging, like, say, if they use 2,000 gallons, wouldn't that be 2740?
But then there's also the meter charge.
We have a meter charge.
Divided by
Okay.
33.
So divided, and we take that meter charge and divide it out, and we have to add money on, so when you start talking this 1368 per 1,000 gallons of water, we're gonna be probably around $16 per 1,000 gallons of water to bill out, to actually, because we have the same infrastructure that you guys have as far as lineage and meters and
Yeah,
everything, so I'm just trying to figure out how to uncomplicate. Because technically, that's gonna put most everybody on the outside water districts paying $4 or $5 more per 1,000 gallons of water than the city people, because of how it's gonna be tiered.
what do you suggest as an alternative option?
I wouldn't tier it. I wouldn't do the
And just
tier,
keep everybody at the 950,
yes.
even though they're using the bulk of the water that's being produced?
I think the mayor did a really good job of spelling it out. We're just charging you guys for that meter charge. How you guys distribute costs is up to the water district. I mean,
Yeah.
personally, I don't think our council should sit here to dictate how you guys charge.
No, you're exactly right,
Yeah, so
Jason.
that's not our business, the city business is.
But it needs to be clarified when you do your rate structure, how Kim is gonna have to bill it
There's
out,
also
Mhm, I
different
agree.
tiers for the different sizes of,
so.
so that would be, like, the meter size also changes the tiers.
The meter size changes the tiers as well, you're right.
And if you look at shear cost per unit on page 18, it actually shows, if you go down to number 4, the consumption rate was set for the inside district limits, outside are 20% higher than that.
Any recommendations? Suggestions?
I think that we paid an expert for a study that we have in front of us that makes sense, and everybody's water rates are gonna go up. And I feel bad, I'm not saying it lightly, I also use water, I live in town, but I just think you and I both had an aha moment tonight that he presented it, well, maybe all of us, that he presented the same information 4 weeks ago, longer ago than that. And I like the tier structure. I think it makes it fair for those people that are using 12,000 plus gallons. They should be paying for that. So that's my 2 cents.
I hear though that the people within your district aren't using 12,000 plus, just the district as a whole. And
Yeah,
I get that. I hear that.
so that's why if you're gonna do the tiering, if you dealt with each district as far as giving them the first four, whatever you're up to the first number, you're gonna, by timesing it out by how many hookups they have, that would help curtail some of the cost of the district as far as billing it out. So I'm still trying to wrap my mind around.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
hear you. That's gotta be really complicated.
So
to
once
try to
we
make it
put
fair.
this behind, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Once we put this behind us and we've moved on from this,
Mhm.
I know that we are going to be addressing all of the district contracts. And that can be a great discussion for, at that opportunity,
Yeah,
don't you think?
yeah.
Okay. Anything else for public comment?
Just clarification is when the rates actually take effect, you know, because
Well, that's another decision, yeah.
Could you tell me who that gentleman was?
Tim Tice.
Pardon?
Tim Tice.
That Tim Tice? And what was his capacity?
He is,
Oregon Association of Water Utilities.
Thank you. He did a wonderful job. I just didn't know who he was.
yeah, for some reason it was much more understandable.
Yes.
it was.
I think because we've just heard it happening here. I'm not
Are we starting to actually know what we're, yeah, like I'm learning about water
a lot.
a lot more than I ever thought I could learn about water.
Definitely a lot. Okay. Anybody else for public comment? Okay. Is there anybody online that would like to raise their hand or unmute for public comment?
Someone, yes.
Yes, wonderful.
Caller, can you please state your name and address?
This is Patty Perrin, 215 North Maple Street. And I talked with the mayor briefly in the last city council meeting about the water rates. And I explained to her that no, I wasn't happy about the water rates, but if it helps Jason and the rest of Public Works to get our water system to where it should be, then I am more than willing to pay, obviously, the extra dollars. I myself and my husband don't use anywhere near the 4,000 gallons a month. There's a couple months out of the year that we use 3,200. So we're one of the ones that don't utilize all the water that is available at the basic rate. So anybody that has financial problems, and I've never used YCAP before, but my understanding is that they are available to assist people that are on fixed incomes or lower incomes with the utility bills. So again, I'm not happy about the increase, but I would rather have the increase and the money go strictly to Public Works, because I mean, I can't say how much I commend Jason and the rest of the Public Works people for the work that they've been doing to get us hopefully on track for whatever comes to us, because we obviously all need the water. So as long as the money is going to go to Public Works to help our infrastructure, then I'm personally willing to put out that extra money. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much for
Thank you,
sharing
Patty.
that. In response, not response, but in addition to what Patty was saying, I've learned recently that if somebody who is on Medicare, so 65 or over typically, and on Medicaid, which is state assistance, so if they're 65 and over and low income is how I interpret that, they qualify for a water utility allowance. So essentially, they take less out of their social security check and allow them more income, is how that typically works. So that's also an opportunity that, for what Patty was talking about, for people who use less and are low income and need that break, that utility break. So that is available to anybody. They can get it through their county aging agency. Anybody else online want to raise their hand and speak in public comment? All right, at this time, I'll close public comment. Unfinished business, water rate increase update. We need a motion and a vote. Do we want to have a discussion prior to that? Or do we want to go into a motion?
Do you want to talk about when we're gonna implement the increase
Great idea.
before we make a motion?
So effective date of our decision.
Well, I just would think that it would make sense, since we put a pause, nothing could go up any sooner than January 1. Why not make it
Okay.
January 1?
That would be sticking to our word. I
That would be
support that.
dead on to our word.
I support that.
Yep.
That's good.
January water use then, or December water use billed in January? Because there's a difference.
So the way I would understand that is the water being used from January 1st and forward would be at the new rate. Yes, Kim? Is that right?
We bill for the previous, so October 20th through November 20th is, and it goes on the November bill that's due
But
December.
by that rationale, their
So
February bill would reflect their January usage at the new rate.
Yep.
That's what I was thinking, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Okay,
February bill.
So the January 20th
so
bill.
120 would be the effective date, right?
well, that would be the
See it.
effective billing date.
Effective billing date.
You would see it on that
But
bill.
the water you drink January 1st would be at the new rate, because that's what's being metered in, correct? Is that, or am I wrong with that?
There's no way for me to separate December from January.
So
So it'd be the January bill that's due
Mhm.
February.
Okay,
new rates February billing.
And when does that billing period start?
We read meters on the 20th.
oh, that's
So
why.
it'd be 1220 to 120.
Okay, that makes good sense.
120? Okay. So the new rate starts 1220.
January 20.
No, 12.
No, 1220.
1220.
So it'd be on your January bill, but it's not due till February.
And it'd be for the period.
There is none.
It would be for the period of 12/20.
So,
Sure.
there you go, Merry Christmas.
I'm not touching this motion, just so y'all know that.
So then sometimes you have to
That's good to
do
know.
a second reading.
All right. Shay,
I don't wanna.
you got us here.
Yeah, Jay, I'm sorry for what I'm about to do to you. So when did we just have the effective date is again, 12/20?
12/20/23.
Yes.
24.
So let me ask a quick question before I go down this path. So what you're looking for is to accept the proposed rate issued by Tim Tice as illustrated on page 18 of the water survey report to take effect 12/20/23.
For billing period
I
beginning
think there's also
12/20.
stuff on the
The water billing period.
Do you wanna
Could you
read the whole
specify
study though?
tier structure, just to put that in there,
Tier structure.
on my motion? Sorry, I'm not trying to.
No, this is why I do notes.
Include the increases that they have on page.
The
So
annual.
just be the whole, the study, the proposed.
Yeah, just read the whole thing.
Well, so I mean theoretically, right, because
The study,
it would be the entire study.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
because there's increases in there that are set
annually.
Page 18 makes more sense.
So yeah, the increase rates report is page 24.
With the CPI.
Well, I'm not saying that. I think I'm gonna go with, to accept Tim Tice's proposal on the water rate, increase. Begin billing period 12/20/23 with tier structure.
Try second.
Oh, I don't think I started yet, actually. I'm still talking about starting. Is that right?
Let's start without you.
It worked.
We good?
Let's get a vote.
So what you can do is you can make the motion and then you can discuss and then repeat all the discussions in there. If there's anything you need to add and then.
Yeah, what Shay said, what Jason said, what Kate said, what Mark said.
Mhm.
So go ahead and repeat
That's
your
kind of what
motion
you're doing now.
So my motion, I'm pretty sure is,
with attention to pages, whatever.
right, so to accept Tim Tice's water rate study and rate changes with special attention paid to page 18, 24, and including the tier structure to begin in the billing period of 12/20/23.
HRI second.
Vote.
Corrigan, I.
Yeah.
HRI.
Potter, aye.
Padine, aye.
Yay.
Sorry.
Can't tell you how
sorry.
much better I feel about that.
Ooh, yeah, it's finally, isn't it?
Thanks for leaving me like that, Carrie.
You're welcome.
Leaning on you for that sort of thing.
Yeah,
Madam
I
President.
tapped out.
Okay, second thing on the unfinished business budget preparation update decisions.
I make a
Proposal.
motion to approve the proposal from Ross Schultz to help us with our budget planning for the 2024-2025 year. Estimated cost total $6,795. Again, that's estimated cost.
Padine, second.
Vote please.
Corrigan, I.
Yeah.
HRI.
Potter, aye.
Padine, aye.
Anything for the good of the order?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Could have been out of here 8 minutes late.
I'll call him tomorrow. I notified
Good night,
him.
Colin.
Yeah.